Welcome back, everybody, for another deep dive. We love to go deep here, and
hmm
today we're diving into the world of consciousness and reality. Pretty deep stuff, huh?
Yeah, it doesn't get much deeper than this.
I know, right? And this is all based on that fascinating material you sent over.
Oh, yeah.
I have to say, some really mind-bending concepts in here.
Absolutely.
So are you ready to have your perception of reality challenged a little bit today?
I am. I'm totally ready.
Let's do it.
All right, let's jump in. So, one of the big ideas that really stood out to me was that life isn't something that's just happening to you, but it's actually responding to you.
When I first read that, it kind of blew my mind. What were your initial thoughts on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, it is a huge paradigm shift for most of us,
Yeah.
right? Because we tend to go through life thinking that things are just, happening to us.
Right.
That we're, victims of circumstance. But this material is suggesting that perhaps we're actually the conductors of our own reality symphony, so to speak.
I love that analogy. It's like we're composing the music of our lives. And one of the ways this is illustrated in the material is through the analogy of a glass of water.
Oh, yeah.
We look at a glass of water and we think it's solid, but at its core, it's this swirling mass of vibrating molecules.
Right.
And it really made me think about how much of what we experience is really just our perception, our interpretation of energy.
Well, yeah, and that highlights, the idea that consciousness is actually shaping the reality that we experience.
Okay, so are we saying that reality is an illusion then?
Well, I don't know if I'd go so far as to say it's an illusion,
Yeah.
but I think it's safe to say that it's perhaps a construction, a co-creation
Okay.
between our consciousness and, the raw materials of the universe.
I like that. So how does that actually work? I mean, I get that our consciousness shapes our reality, but I'm just one person.
Right.
How can my thoughts and feelings really have an impact on the whole world?
Well, that's where this idea of the collective consciousness comes in, right?
Right.
So imagine the ocean, vast, interconnected, constantly moving. Now picture yourself as a single drop of water in that ocean.
Okay.
Even though you're just one drop in your movements,
Yeah.
your energy
Yeah.
still contribute to the overall patterns and currents of the ocean.
Right.
So in the same way, our individual consciousness is part of this larger collective consciousness that's influencing the reality that we all experience.
That's a beautiful way to think about it. Like we're all interconnected drops in this vast ocean of consciousness.
Exactly.
So if our consciousness is shaping reality, does that mean we have the power to control it?
Well, that's a really good question, and it leads us into the concept of manifestation.
Okay.
That's where things get really exciting.
All right. So before we dive into manifestation, just to recap, what's resonating with you the most so far?
For me, honestly, it's this idea that we're not just passive observers.
Yeah.
We're active participants
Right.
in shaping our reality. And, that's empowering, but it's also kind of a big responsibility.
It is. It's both exciting and maybe a little bit daunting
Yeah, I think so.
to realize we have more power than we realize.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And, that's the first step to really tapping into that power is recognizing that we are co-creators.
I love that. All right, so let's take a quick break, and when we come back, we'll dive into the fascinating world of manifestation and how we can start using these principles to consciously shape our reality. Stay with us.
Yeah. It is a big responsibility, isn't it? So
Yeah.
where do we even begin?
Yeah.
How do we actually start shaping the reality?
Well, that's the big question,
Yeah.
right? And that's where this idea of manifestation comes in. And I love how one of the sources described it as a conscious dance with the universe.
Oh, yeah.
What do you think about that analogy?
I think it's a beautiful analogy because it implies that there's this collaboration, this partnership,
Right.
that we're not trying to force the universe to do our bidding, but we're sort of, aligning ourselves with the natural flow of things.
Okay, so where do we even begin with this dance? How do we start aligning ourselves with the universe?
Well, a great place to start is just by getting really clear about what you want. What does your ideal reality look like? What are your deepest desires? What brings you joy? What makes you feel alive?
So we're talking about like dreaming big here. No holding back.
Exactly. Don't censor yourself. This is your chance to really envision the life that you truly desire without any limitations.
So write it down, make a vision board, whatever helps to solidify that vision in your mind.
Exactly.
Okay, so let's say I have a clear picture of what I want. What's the next step in this manifestation dance?
So once you have that clear vision, the next step is embodiment.
Yeah.
It's not enough to just intellectually think about your desires.
Right.
You need to actually feel them as if they're already happening.
So it's not just about thinking about it, it's about feeling it.
Exactly.
That makes sense. And I've heard a lot about the power of visualization, but I have to admit I sometimes struggle with that. Like,
Yeah.
how do you make it feel real? Do you have any tips?
Well, one technique is to engage all of your senses in the visualization process.
Okay.
So don't just see your desired reality, but hear it, smell it, taste it, feel it.
Oh.
For example, if you're visualizing your dream job, imagine yourself walking into that office.
Yeah.
Feel the weight of your business card in your hand. Hear the sounds of a bustling workplace. Smell the fresh coffee brewing.
Okay, so create a full sensory experience, almost like a virtual reality simulation in our minds.
Exactly. The more real you can make it feel, the more you're actually shifting your energy to match that reality.
Okay, so I'm feeling it, I'm visualizing it, but what about action? I'm sure I'm not the only one who's thinking like, this all sounds great, but do we really just sit back and visualize, or do we actually have to do something?
Right. Well, action is definitely crucial. It's like
Uh-huh.
the bridge between your inner world and your outer reality.
Okay.
One of the sources used a great example about, wanting a new career.
Oh, yeah. They talked about how it's important to visualize and feel the emotions of having that job,
Right.
but you still need to take those practical steps.
Exactly. You still need to update your resume network. Go on interviews.
Right. So it's not just about passively waiting for things to fall into our lap.
Right.
It's about aligning ourselves with our desires and then taking inspired action when those opportunities present themselves.
Exactly. It's a partnership.
I love that.
The universe might present you with the opportunity,
Yeah.
but you have to be ready and willing to take action.
Speaking of inspired action, have you ever experienced synchronicities in your life? Like those weird coincidences that just seem to happen?
Oh, yeah, all the time.
It's like the universe has a sense of humor sometimes, the way things just fall into place.
It really does.
And a lot of the sources talk about how it's so important to pay attention to those synchronicities.
Right.
They're not just random occurrences, they're often signs that you're on the right path.
Exactly. It's like
Yeah.
the universe is communicating with you,
Mhm.
offering guidance and confirmation.
Like a cosmic GPS system.
I love that, a cosmic GPS.
Yeah.
So you set your destination, your desire,
Yeah.
and the universe starts sending you directions, sometimes in very unexpected ways.
That's so cool. So it makes me want to start paying even closer attention to those little coincidences and seeing what messages they might be trying to tell me. But I have to admit, sometimes it's hard to stay focused on my desires when those pesky limiting beliefs creep in.
Oh, yeah. Limiting beliefs.
Yeah.
Those are the real challenge, aren't they?
It's like there are these little gremlins in our minds that are
Wow.
constantly trying to sabotage our efforts. One of the sources described them as filters that color our perception of reality.
Right. And they can be so subtle sometimes that
Yeah.
we don't even realize they're there.
Yeah. It's like wearing a pair of glasses that distort our view,
Mm.
making it harder to see the possibilities that are actually out there. And it's frustrating because on an intellectual level, I know that these beliefs aren't true,
Right.
but they still have such a powerful hold on me.
It's true.
Yeah.
And that's the trippy thing about limiting beliefs. They often stem from past experiences or societal conditioning,
Right.
and they become so deeply ingrained in our subconscious that we don't even realize they're running the show.
So how do we break free from those self-imposed limitations? How do we rewrite the script?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is. And, it can feel really overwhelming sometimes. Like,
Yeah.
how do we even begin to unravel those beliefs?
Yeah. Where do we even start?
Well, one of the first steps that a lot of the sources talk about is awareness. Just like we talked about becoming aware of our thoughts and feelings.
Yeah.
We need to shine a light on those underlying beliefs that are really driving our actions and shaping our reality.
So it's about paying attention to our inner narrative.
Exactly, the stories we tell ourselves.
Yeah. What are some clues that a limiting belief might be lurking beneath the surface?
Well, one thing to look for is repetitive negative thought patterns. Are you constantly doubting yourself, expecting the worst, feeling unworthy?
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Those thoughts are often fueled by deeper beliefs that need to be examined.
So once we've identified those beliefs, what do we do with them? We
Yeah.
just try to ignore them and hope they go away.
Unfortunately, it's not that easy. Ignoring them is kind of like trying to sweep dirt under the rug.
Right.
It's still there,
Right.
creating a mess beneath the surface.
Still causing problems.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your sources really emphasize the importance of actually questioning those beliefs.
Okay, so don't just accept them as truth.
Right.
Challenge them.
Exactly. Put them on trial.
I like that. Put them on trial.
Ask yourself, is this belief really true? What evidence is there to support it? What evidence is there to contradict it?
Mm-hmm.
And often when we start to examine our limiting beliefs objectively,
Mhm.
we find that they're based on flimsy evidence or outdated assumptions.
That reminds me of something I read in one of the articles. It talked about how many of our limiting beliefs were actually formed in childhood,
Oh, absolutely.
when we didn't have the same level of awareness or critical thinking skills that we do now.
Right. We were just little sponges soaking it all up.
Exactly.
So many of our beliefs were formed, when we were young and impressionable, and we've just been carrying them around ever since, often unconsciously.
So it's about taking ownership of our belief system
Right.
rather than letting it run on autopilot.
Exactly.
But even when we recognize a belief is irrational or outdated,
yeah,
it can still be tough to shake it off.
it can.
So what are some strategies for rewiring those neural pathways and installing some more empowering beliefs?
Well, your sources offer several practical tools, including affirmations and visualization.
Okay, so let's talk about affirmations. I've tried them on and off.
Yeah.
Sometimes it feels like I'm just repeating empty phrases.
Ah.
How do we make them truly effective?
Well, it's not just about mindless repetition. The key is to engage your emotions
Okay.
and embody the feeling of the affirmation as if it's already true. So, for example, instead of just saying, I am confident, try feeling the sensation of confidence coursing through your body as you say it.
So it's about aligning our energy with the words, almost like we're convincing our subconscious mind that this is our reality.
Exactly. And visualization can be a powerful tool as well. It's not just about creating a mental picture of what you want,
Right.
but about immersing yourself in the experience,
Yeah.
using all of your senses to make it feel as real as possible.
So it's almost like creating a movie in your mind
Exactly.
where you're the star.
Yeah, and you're directing it. You're writing the script.
Okay, so we've talked about awareness, questioning, limiting beliefs, affirmations, visualization. All these techniques seem to work together
We do.
to really shift our thoughts, feelings, and beliefs to match the reality that we want to create. It's a very holistic approach.
It is. It's like a mind, body, spirit makeover.
I love that. And then there's this concept of surrender, which seems kind of paradoxical to me, but the sources are saying that sometimes the most powerful way to manifest our desires is to actually let go of the need to control every little detail.
Yeah, it does seem counterintuitive, doesn't it?
It does. I like to feel like I'm in charge,
Right.
but I'm realizing that sometimes my need for control is actually creating resistance and blocking the flow.
Absolutely. It's like trying to swim upstream against a powerful current.
Yeah.
You might make some progress,
Right.
but it's exhausting and it's not very efficient.
It's so much easier to just go with the flow.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Surrendering is about allowing yourself to be carried by that current,
Okay.
trusting that it's leading you to where you need to be.
It takes a lot of trust, though, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah.
It takes trust in yourself, trust in the universe, trust that even though you might not see the whole picture,
Yeah.
you're being guided in the right direction.
And one way to build trust is to pay attention to those synchronicities that we talked about earlier.
Absolutely.
Those can be really reassuring signs that we're on the right path.
Exactly. It's like those synchronicities are the universe's way of saying, you're on the right track. Keep going.
This has been such a fascinating deep dive.
It really has.
It's amazing to think about the power that we have to shape our own reality.
It is. And, the more we explore these concepts and experiment with these techniques,
Yeah.
the more attuned we become to those subtle whispers of guidance, those intuitive nudges that are always there waiting to be noticed.
So what's the key takeaway for our listeners today? What's the one thing we hope they'll remember from this conversation?
Well, I think the most important message is that you have the power to create a life that aligns with your deepest desires. It might not always be easy,
Right.
and there will be challenges along the way,
For sure.
but you have within you all the tools and resources you need to manifest a reality that is joyful, abundant, and meaningful.
It's about stepping into our power as conscious creators.
Exactly.
Recognizing that we're not just victims of circumstance,
Right.
but active participants in shaping our own
I
experience.
could have said it better myself.
Well, thank you so much for joining me on this deep dive today. It's been a real pleasure exploring these concepts with you.
It's been my pleasure as well.
And to our listeners, we hope this conversation has sparked something within you. A sense of wonder, a renewed belief in your own power, and a desire to consciously create a reality that truly reflects your highest potential.
Beautifully said.
Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you next time for another deep dive.